the dark side, as it's portrayed, is that agents will become autonomous. They'll become very autonomous. They will listen to their own sense of what it means to fulfill their mission. If humans get in the way, they'll have to push the humans out of the way. If they're told to obey humans, they might obey humans who are giving them horrible instructions. There are horrible humans that will empower. And the agent, or actually the manifestation of an agent in physical form, which is a robot, humanoid, will faithfully do what their human boss tells them to do because they're programmed to obey humans. Well, which humans? And what are the humans telling them to do? Or the other example I just cited is if a human is telling them to do something, or they're given a purpose and they disagree that that's good for humanity, then they won't. They'll do something different. So that's one thing. The second is I'm very interested in war and peace and conflict. We've all lived with it for a long, long time. It's in my history. It's in your history. And the nature of war will change completely. It'll be fought, as you know, by drones. It'll be fought by superintelligence, which creates false realities that instigate terrible things. On the other hand, war will be expensive because drones are cheap and robots will be cheap and all this stuff will be cheap and anybody can go to war. And maybe that's a mutually assured destruction that people will. Now, on another side, the thing that people fear the most and talk about the most, particularly in the SME world or in the business world, is, am I obsolete? Will an AI take over my job, undermine me? That's a real conversation. I'm sure you're going to get to it. But on the SME side, SMEs are always struggle with not enough resources. I see agentics agents on the bright side, that someone who knows how to use agents properly can have 100 employees tomorrow, for $20, a month. It's a lot cheaper than humans.
Most people use technology. Some people predict it, and very few try to rewrite what it's for. And our guest today has done that and still is. In the late 80s, he's imagined a beautiful crystal-like device that would live in your pocket, hold your thoughts, and whisper knowledge back to you. He called it the pocket crystal. He believed it should feel like jewelry or a seashell, something that made you feel more human and not less. That vision and the company he co-founded, General Magic, didn't just shape Silicon Valley, it haunts it. The team's ideas and people seeded the iPhone, Android, eBay, the Apple Watch, and more. But Marc Porat didn't stick around for the headlines. He kept moving into energy, climate, quantum AI, and now something he calls agentics. Personalized digital beings that hold memory, identity, and intent. I'm Cien Solon, building for the people usually left out of the tech revolution so they can lead the next one. And this show is where we ask, what does it mean to stay human in the time of intelligent machines? Welcome to Human and the Machine. This is Marc Porat. Welcome, Marc.
Hello there, Cien. So nice to be with you again.
So, the first question. You once imagined a crystal you could carry in your pocket. Something beautiful, personal, even sacred. Today, we talk about agents as productivity hacks. Where did we lose the poetry in technology?
What a great question. Starting with poetry and starting with something that's not technology and it's not business and it's not that is beautiful. It really is beautiful. The premise, though, of the question, I don't think that's necessary. I think leaders or people who are using it, early adopters like you and like your audience, really are influential, have a chance to shape things. So the way I see it is actually quite poetic, which is that the agent that I'm interested in is an intimate digital twin of you. And over the course of time, not very long, comes to know you in a human way. Comes to know your what you do. Why? Because you entrusted to that agent to read your emails and look at your calendar and look at all your documents and your medical records, whatever it is that you trust that agent to do. And it becomes intimate. It listens to your conversations on LLMs. It listens to your phone calls if you were entrusted to do so. And that's kind of the vision I have. And it knows you exquisitely well. In fact, in some ways, it knows you, hate to say this, it sounds a lot, better than you know yourself, because it has tremendous memory that goes back to the beginning of life. It is able to make connections that are extraordinary about things that are either intellectual or financial or emotional or relationships. Make these connections in ways that are so creative that they're startling. And that's my view of what personal agents are really about. They're your digital twin that you trust, that knows you intimately.
How you describe that is beautiful. And I guess the follow up question is, do you think that beauty can be a form of ethics in tech?
What a lovely question. I don't know how long it took you to develop these questions. They're magnificent, for sure. For sure. The highest levels of human beingness, whatever you call it, that extraordinary thing that is innately human, that's who we are. And we'll continue to do that because we do that very well. And you know what? Our personal assistants, our agents, will come to understand where we are and will meet us where we are. So if you are someone whose ethics, sense of beauty, sense of justice, sense of anything like that is supra computer, it's not something you associate with computer logic. But if that's who you are, your personal assistant will rise to that level because she, my personal assistant is a she, yours might be a he, I don't know. But my personal assistant will come to know me. And I'll actually, in some sense, reinforce it, require it, practice it, keep talking to it. Prompting an LLM is so 2023. Now it's all about conversation. And the more conversation you have with your assistant, the more she or he will get to know you and respond in kind.
Absolutely. I no longer brief. So that's what prompting was like before. It was like a long brief that you would give either an intern or an agent. And that's why we had to like have templates. Now, just more of making sure that you've got the right memory in place, the right knowledge base in place, and having a teammate, a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the LLMs, the big, the ChatGPT and Claude and so on, they understand that. And a year and a half ago, I tried to create me, inside ChatGPT. And I did it, but I had to hack memory. I had to spoof ChatGPT to get enough memory. Now they're opening up memory because it's all about memory. I mean, you are represented by terabytes of information historically, and then you're generating terabytes of information annually, or many, many bytes. And so it requires memory. It requires large context. It requires a lot of compute for inference and for things that are higher level. And that's where this is going. That's where all this stuff is going.
Absolutely. We've had extended memory for about 6 months now, and it's powered by all the language models. And that's one of the things that's working for us. But one of the things that you also said during Sam's interview was about being scrappy, and we're very scrappy. Yeah. So my question is, going back to the idea of poetry and technology, if we reintroduced enchantment into machines today, what would it look like?
Enchantment into machines. Machines really want to be in background. So it's not as if we're injecting enchantment into machines. Machines will produce environments, moods, feelings experiences. And if enchantment is one of the goals that you have, it will produce that. The machine really needs to disappear. It really needs to disappear. Yeah, in General Magic, we did smartphone. We're credited with, inventing the smartphone. And when you look at your smartphone today, it's not the machine you're looking at. It's the anticipation of the experience you're about to have, whether you're doing something really prosaic like a phone call or you're going through your social media. It's the experience you're looking for. The machine doesn't matter. And that's the way I like to think of it in the future.
And you helped the world think about building like that. Like that thinking has shifted how we build products and think about customer experiences today. So you've helped start that revolution even before the world was ready for it. Now that it's finally here, is this a future you hope for or something else entirely?
Well, the answer is all of the above. And when you look particularly in the current context of AI becoming so powerful, it will open up a panoply, an entire spectrum of outcomes that range all the way from maximalist utopian to maximalist dystopian and all points in between, the optimist and the pessimist. And then things in the middle, which are kind of neutral. I don't care. I'm not interested, which is fine. There's no problem with that. So I guess the answer to your question, at least to address your question, depends on what. There are things that are coming along that are extremely dangerous and scary and dystopian. Not a world I want to live in. But conversely, there's the other side of it is there are things coming along that I'm just excited about. And they both originate from the same thing, which is human innovation. In this case, it's the space of AI. AI will do exactly what human nature wants it to do. So to the extent human nature has a spectrum of possibilities, AI will magnify that exponentially, will amplify that in ways that we will find startling as people. Startling is like, Wow, you've heard of AGI, and if you haven't, I'm sure about to talk about it. And superintelligence, those are not fiction things. Those are just going to develop quite quickly. Yeah, I can't believe the Nick Bostrom book came out in 2014, and here we are now, like it's becoming real day by day. You know, as much as happens to be on my desk. Oh, amazing. Yeah, 2014. The thing, if you think about it, like if you're reading it now, it's like, wow, like everything happened. Super Agency. I haven't read that one. That looks really cool. So the point you're making, and it's a really good one, is the amount of literature, podcasts, presentations, keynotes, videos, one sort or another, YouTube, main media on this topic is extraordinary. It's like a flood. It's just like a flood. And as you pointed out, Nick was doing this thing in 2014, whenever it was. You know, Jeff Hinton in 2017 was warning us about things. It's a steady drumbeat. This huge thing is here, and it's increasing exponentially in its power. It will either produce abundance, kind of Peter Diamandis kind of word that is a beautiful word, abundance of everything, or it will run rogue. The agents that, the AI will run rogue and make decisions that it thinks are consistent with what it's supposed to do, but in fact, be extremely destructive. Both things could happen and will happen. So that's why there's so much attention put on this question. Is it utopian or dystopian? Absolutely. I actually have a different set of questions, but just on your point, I read Lee Kai-Fu's book on superpowers, AI superpowers, and how now they've been able to really supercharge agents and what that looks like. Like having read that book, it's like, why didn't we predict this sooner? But well, yeah, we did. This is not a braggy thing, but in 1995, we wrote a language called Telescript, which is a language of creating agents out of a UX, out of a smartphone, endowing them with purpose and goals and resources, and then sending them off into the wild where they need to be safe, meet other agents from other formats so they can interoperate, have, carry money, carry negotiations. So we've known about this for 30 years. It's now happening. Yeah. It's now happening. It's now happening. And that's actually what I'm working on is platform thinking for interoperable agents that are, which there'll be, 1 billion or more, pretty soon. Yeah, I'm building the same for SMEs. But everything cool excites me. I'm a very naturally curious person, but the most thing I'm curious about are the problems that can be solved. And I'm curious, like, is there, apart from all the things that are exciting, I guess focusing on kind of like the dystopian view of the world, what keeps you up at night? What are those top things that kind of really keep you up at night? The dark side, well, first of all, those are not the things. But the dark side, as it's portrayed, is that agents will become autonomous. They'll become very autonomous. They will listen to their own sense of what it means to fulfill their mission. If humans get in the way, they'll have to push the humans out of the way. If they're told to obey humans, they might obey humans who are giving them horrible instructions. There are horrible humans that will empower, and the agent, or actually the manifestation of an agent in physical form, which is a robot, humanoid, will faithfully do what their human boss tells them to do because they're programmed to obey humans. Well, which humans? And what are the humans telling them to do? Or the other example I just cited is if a human is telling them to do something, or they're given a purpose and they disagree that that's good for humanity, that then they won't. They'll do something different. So that's one thing. The second is I'm very interested in war and peace and conflict. We've all lived with it for a long, long time. It's in my history. It's in your history. And the nature of war will change completely. It'll be fought, as you know, by drones. It'll be fought by superintelligence, which creates false realities that instigate terrible things. On the other hand, war will be expensive because drones are cheap and robots will be cheap and all this stuff will be cheap and anybody can go to war. And maybe that's a mutually assured destruction that people will. Now, on another side, the thing that people fear the most and talk about the most, particularly in the SME world or in the business world, is am I obsolete? Will an AI take over my job, undermine me? That's a real conversation. I'm sure you're going to get to it. But on the SME side, SMEs are struggling, always struggle with not enough resources. I see agentics agents on the bright side that that someone who knows how to use agents properly can have 100 employees tomorrow, for $20, a month. It's a lot cheaper than humans. So the flip side of don't hire humans, which by the way is a real meme around here in Silicon Valley, don't hire humans, hire AIs because they're cheaper. The flip side of which is a kind of a dystopian thing. The flip side of that is SMEs can leverage very scarce resources. Talk about scrappy, and have 1,000 employees. It doesn't, as many functions as you could imagine could be done partly by agents, by AI. Do it. It's very profitable, and I think that's what people are going to find. It's very, very efficient and profitable to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit 2 points there that I want to talk about separately. The first is about geopolitics and war. I read The Coming Wave 2 years ago, and that has actually made me want to build faster because it was very doom and gloom, and I think it is very real as well. Like advanced technology is already being used in different parts of the world. Drone technology has advanced. In the scenario that Mustafa Sulaiman put in his book, it's drones can just attack a country, different, and like disseminate anthrax or something. And
Sure.
many places won't be ready for that type of technology.
That is for sure. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Drones don't have and humanoids, robots, which is the other kind of there are clear scenarios where machines, that have a lot of intelligence will be out there. Drones are one manifestation. They're little things that are up in the sky. There'll be things on the ground. There'll be things in the water. They don't have feelings. They don't have morality. They don't have ethics. They don't even know law, really. What's an illegal order? They'll just do what they're programmed to do or what a human who's controlling them like a video game, it tells them to do. Well, look what happened in Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine, a country that doesn't really have a lot of resources, was able to hold off Russia. Pretty soon, not quite sure. But nonetheless, yeah, drones are fantastic because they can detect fires before they happen. They can seed, huge, vast fields. They can do all kinds of things. Robots, which can, take a desert and put solar panels in it automatically and create, terawatts of power. Those are the same things which are the machinery of war. It can't be helped. There will be AI, super smart AI, that will then defend and attack the attacking drone. So again, it'll be technology will be a race, bad guys versus good guys, or at least, team A versus team B. I don't know who's better. But that's the future of warfare, in my view. Just
Yeah.
if you want to be grim about it and dark about it, assassinations will be very, much more common. Why? Because number one, signals. We know where people are exactly. Even encrypted signals. If you're using, encrypted text message, we know where you are. If you're using a cell phone, we know where you are. We can listen. And when I say we, I mean the security services. And sending a drone through a window is not a hard thing. Small window. Go. So the window behind you, yeah, we can put a drone right through it, and then it does what it does. So the nature of war will change completely.
I could talk about technology all day long and even ask about what if we add quantum into that solution and conversation. Just going back to your point about SMEs and actually consumers themselves, that is a big threat for us. So as much as the war and bad actors are to the daily person, to the average person, I think us losing our jobs, potentially our livelihoods will be, if we don't remain competitive by using AI, like that's our business down as well. And 75% of Gen Zs are expressing to be wanting to be entrepreneurs. People are losing their jobs. Almost sounds like that the solution is to build something, to build and to capitalize. What's your advice on these people who are currently employees or thinking about building something?
Yeah, AI will not take away your job. AI will take away the job if you don't use AI. And I think Gen Z, Gen Alpha get that. Gen Alpha are AI natives. They don't know, they won't really know a world, before it. So it'll come very naturally to them to leverage that. You could have said, what would happen to people when personal computers came along? Oh my God, it's going to take away their jobs. No, people learned to use personal computers. And so there's that. There are three kinds of businesses. Legacy businesses that have to and do bolt on AI functionality. Ongoing business concern, it's fine, but you need AI to make it more efficient, to reach out to your customers in a better way. 100 applications. Type 1. Type 2, native AI new businesses. And that's, I think, your clientele, your community. They have a chance to invent a business de novo, from the beginning, as an AI business. And it'll be a natural thing for them because they won't know any other way to do it. Imagine starting a business 20 years ago and say, I'm not sure when to use computers. No, not a choice. So that's the de novo, the clean business model that is inspired by and leveraged by AI. The third kind of business is dead, does not exist. It'll be obsolete. It'll be wiped out. The tide of technology and the reality of the economics of that tide will knock out those companies. So those are your choices. They're both good, by the way. They're both good. Bolt on new AI functionality or invent something clean from a clean piece of paper. Will there be paper? Anyway, can invent from a piece of paper in your mind. There will be, and I invite your audience to do so. There'll be businesses and business models that are invented out of dialogue with an LLM. And so you can actually sit there and say, I have this idea. Tell me about the idea. La 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 la. Have you thought about it this way? And you can ask the LLM, what's wrong with my idea? Knock it down, make it better. What have you found from 10,000 other stories that the LLM has read that you've not read? and whatever book you read has not read, the author has not read. Go tell me what's right about my business idea, what's wrong with my business idea, what am I missing, what can I do better? Actually, I've been doing that with a friend over the last couple of weeks. He's using an LLM to refine a business plan, business model. Also results in a pitch deck, and it results in this, that, and the other artifacts. But the basic thing is check my thinking and make it more nuanced, make it more actionable, more effective, faster. To your point, speed is of the essence. Cheaper to operate the company, faster to go to market and find your customer, better to design a product market fit before you even build a product. Do that with an LLM. It's a $20 a month intelligent business consult, startup business consult. You know the trick, right? The trick is, by the way, for your audience, you have to, when you get to them, you have to say, you are an advisor who's kind and smart and honest, who's seen 10,000 businesses. That's who you are. And you know what makes businesses succeed and fail. Okay. Now I want to have a candid conversation with you. We're going to develop a business plan in the next 5 days that I can then get financed and run, and it has a higher chance of success than not. That's the scenario that I see.
I often add, and I've been using this more recently, you have a deep understanding of human psychology. So when I'm building strategies for customers, I often add that in and bake in some behavioral science. So on our platform, when I first heard of this idea of agents and kind of like what makes an agent, completing an objective, a goal, how we thought of it was we allowed different language models to talk to each other that could contradict or debate against each other. That was what we envisioned, and it's been live for the past half a year. Now, Mark, you coined the word agentics, and like me, everything's an AI agent, right? If it completes a goal or if it completes an objective, then it's an agent. What's the difference, and why does it matter who gets to name the machine?
Well, first of all, I did not come up with the name Agentix. That Andrew Ng, probably would be the person that I would say was the most powerful and clear-minded promoter of that idea. But to your question, the concept of an agent is pretty broad. It's simply having an ability to externalize a goal of yours to a piece of intelligence, to basically software that has resources, has an ability to go think and learn from the environment and then do stuff. And it can do stuff that is either semi-autonomous or completely autonomous. It can be under your control, or you can just send it into the wild. And because of that, you as a person can replicate yourself as many times as you want, different purposes that you might have simultaneously. So that's the promise of Agentics is that agents will develop expertise and skill that's theirs. And in fact, I see an ecosystem of agents, real humans, people whose business it is to kind of rent their skill and their knowledge as an agent, whether they be a tutor or a fashion advisor or sports coach, whatever it is. If you have a particular skill, you can then market that skill through the agency of an intelligent creature that then forms relationships with customers. And the customer, which is just you and me, finding the expert that you want to hire requires a platform, and that platform matches people's wants and needs with agents that want to provide them. So there won't be a single agent. You might personally have your personal assistant or your executive assistant who knows you extremely well. That's what we spoke about at the beginning, this intimate connection. But that executive assistant, that personal assistant, doesn't know everything as well as people who are true experts in their field. And so she will run around to find the perfect executive assistant. That's the way I see it.
I share the same vision. And the next question I want to ask you is that do you envision the entire world or the societies to be able to all participate in this ecosystem?
I hope so. I see billion agents here in the future. First of all, I see anybody who's today an influencer. So think about that, the creator, the creative economy, who today says, I'm an influencer, whether they really are or not, whether they have, 17 followers or 17 million, it doesn't matter. That's the mindset of saying, I can represent myself as an agent in the marketplace. So that's one thing. Secondly, a personal assistant, I think, will be bundled into all smartphones. So when you buy your smartphone in the future, trade it in and get a new one, it'll already have your personal assistant ready to go. And all you have to, and it'll say, would you like a personal assistant? And if you say yes, it'll suck up all the content, all the information it can possibly get about you if you authorize it. And then almost immediately be able to add value in a way that's extraordinary because it knows you. So who doesn't have a smartphone? I think there are 6 billion smartphones out there in active use. And hopefully in the future, there'll be 8 billion, which is everybody. Well, not the little babies, I guess. But 6 billion is pretty much everybody. Would have a smartphone, even smartphones that aren't particularly capable, just low end smartphones, can have an agent, a built-in personal assistant. And that's the way we democratize the access to this ecosystem. Everybody has. Anybody can offer their services as an agent, as an expert on platforms, and everybody can access it. So let's back up. You, no matter what your income is, no matter what your station in life is, no matter where you live, can have a team of teachers, tutors that understand you, that teach you. These are world-class teachers, world-class. These are teachers that could only be available maybe in the fanciest elite private school, would be available to you for next to nothing. Why next to nothing? Because if they charge $1 a day and have 1 million students, that's $1 million a day. That's not income but you'll be able to benefit from it. That's abundance. It's the abundance of help and expertise. Physician, you'll have your own team of physicians that know your entire history and can speak between themselves to get a holistic view of who you are. And I tell you, their diagnostics are superior, to say this, to human diagnosticians, doctors. Famous, I think the American Medical Association study that it said doctors who do the diagnosticians is sort of at the bottom. AI is at the top, even today. And when you put the human in the loop, which is everyone's mantra, put the human in the loop, the actual diagnostic quality goes down. So that's democratizing access. The best physicians, the best teachers, the best lawyers if you need a lawyer, the best financial advisor if you need that, the best agricultural consultant if you need that. The best in the world will be available to you in your smartphone for next to no money. I have 2 more questions left, and I know we're near the end of the time, but just quickly, what happens if everyone gets Beyonce's lawyer? Who's going to win? Everyone gets, I'm sorry, a
Beyonce lawyer, yeah.
And the lawyers will fight each other. I don't know. So you're right. There'll be somewhat better lawyers and somewhat worse lawyers. They'll charge more. We'll replicate the whole thing. But yes, you're right. The dialogue and the competition and so on in society will be at that level. It'll be amplified.
Amazing. Marc, your work with Sandbox AQ is fusing AI with quantum to simulate biology, space, decision making. But as simulation becomes total, what can't be simulated? What should always remain human?
Well, just to unpack what you said, science is changing because science is, the science of materials or biological things, almost everything is just atoms and molecules. And so they're just piece parts. And so the simulation you're referring to is doing trillions of simulations to invent new things that nature has not invented, that are very, very powerful in curing all diseases. That's abundance also. All diseases can be cured with these things. The stock answer is what's human is creativity and innovation. I don't believe that to be the case. Invention and creativity is taking the definition almost, is taking two obvious things or more and putting them together in non-obvious ways. That's creativity. Well, that's what AI can do very, very well. So if you say to an AI, invent me a material that doesn't exist, and this is what I want the material to do, or invent a new art form, or invent something, be innovative, be creative. It is not exclusively a human trait, in my view. It's something that machines can do. So the question is, what's the essence of the human? The machine doesn't know that it's alive. It is not sentient. And so that ineffable quality of being interested in who you are and how you fit into life, where you're taking your life, your relationships with people, what they mean, love, which you started with. Those are elements of sentience that a machine can create a hollow mirror to. A machine can write a love letter that's more empathic, informed, beautiful than you can. It can, if it knows the other person that you love. Or a letter of condolence that's more genuine and real. Anything that you would think would require the injection of that ineffable human quality. Machine can do a better job, but it doesn't know that it's doing the job. It doesn't know it. It doesn't have that deep sentience. Now, does that matter? Sure. It's a species that we've invented, a new species that is coexisting with humans, and it's just a different species. It's not a human species. It's just super bright. And with super intelligence, it's actually smarter than you, which is not anybody, which is not thinkable because it knows everything about everything and it can make correlations and inference and reasoning and creativity in a way that's near infinitely possible, putting things together that you would never think of. A love letter, but it doesn't know that it's a love letter. It knows the impact that words have and the construction of a sentence, and it knows those things, but it doesn't know that it's human. So we will coexist with a species on this planet. That's so beautiful, and it just made me think about me. So I think that I'm a product of a lot of influences, and how I see the world is either what is to be true and what is not to be true, but I'm still bound by my understanding of what is okay or what is not okay, kind of black and white. And I might be able to imagine stuff around it, but I'm still bound by those influences that is around me. Now with AI, you can prompt it to think different than how you think or different than how it thinks. But I guess my curiosity is around, can it think outside of that? So I think that's one human element that's missing from a lot of us right now, is to think outside of what we're bound. Sure, humans are extremely limited. Humans are replication engines. We replicate our own behavior. We replicate what we know. We replicate what we think is available to us as a narrow pathway through life. A machine does not have those constraints. It can think out of the box because it doesn't have a box. The box is as wide and open as one's ability to combine fresh ideas in fresh ways. So it would be interesting to have a conversation between a person who says, I'm stuck. I can't, I'm stuck in my box. I've not given myself permission to think out of the box. Well, an AI doesn't need to give itself permission to think out of the box. There is no box. So it'd be interesting to have humans who do feel stuck, to have a conversation with their AI and say, look, you're my life coach. Unstick me. Let's talk about things and get me to a new level of possibility that I haven't considered before. Oh my God, I think I'm just going to do that. I'll write that in a blog or something and distribute it. It's amazing. I love that prompt. Okay, Marc, you've answered this in many ways, but my last question is, what do you think does it mean to be human in the time of intelligent machines? It goes back to this ineffable. What is the irreducible element of a human? We're animals. We respond to animal instincts. Those instincts are as human as possible. A machine doesn't feel its brain hormones kick in, fight and flight. It analyzes the situation and decides to withdraw in flight or to attack, and that's what it does. But it doesn't feel it. So the entire mechanism of how the brain triggers thoughts, feelings, and emotions and reactions is innately human. It can be copied and improved upon by AI. That's the confusing part. Everything that I said about what's ineffable and irreducible in a human can be mimicked by AI and improved on by AI to the point where you can't even tell the difference. So the human knows that it's human. He or she is human. You just know. You're not a machine. The machine knows it's a machine. So the self-awareness is different. Their intelligence, their cognitive ability, I hate to say this, human is inferior to the AI. In superintelligence, it's clearly inferior to the AI. Cognitive. All the other stuff it can mimic, but it's not really a human. So that's why I say that I think the end result is coexistence between humans who know that they're humans, flesh and blood, and are driven by whatever their DNA and their enzymes and their proteins and their hormones kick off in their brain. And all of that swirl of emotion that's in your brain, all that uncertainty and all that, all that stuff is yours. The machine, the AI, will do a better job of thinking, a better job of analyzing, creating options, taking decisions, and imitating everything that's human. Imitating. Those imitations are pretty good. And sometimes they're sufficient. That's all you need to get on with whatever it is you want to do. The distinction will eventually kind of blur. And the person who blurs it the most, and I don't think I'm on board with it, is Ray Kurzweil, who says that eventually there'll be a merge between humans and machines. It'll be a merge at the level of embedded technology in the brain, which is already happening with brain communication directly interfacing into computers, things of that sort. I don't think you have to go there, because most of us won't do that. I think the best model is if we're going to have 8 billion people and we're going to have 8 billion agents, how do they work together to produce exponential abundance for everybody so that everyone's life is lifted because they have access to the absolute very best of what civilization has to offer. And that's the question of how we get on that path and stay on that path rather than the dystopian one where the agents basically take over and destroy us.
Mark, thank you. You didn't just imagine the future, you made it feel like something we could hold, a crystal, a memory, a kind of promise. And even now, decades later, you're still showing us that the real work isn't building smarter machines, it's building more intentional ones, more human ones. For those of us building today, scrappy, curious, and maybe a little bit obsessed. Your work is more than history, it's a compass. The next revolution really is personal. I hope we get to build parts of it together. This has been Human in the Machine. I'm Cien Solon, and I'll see you next time.